Hello, Dr. Mindy Curry here. I'm a naturopath. I practice in the greater Portland area doing house calls and also have a small office in Milwaukee. And I'm here today sitting with one of my herbal friends, Comfrey, Symphytum officinale. And this is also known as knit bone. And this is a very ancient medicine that's been used in Europe. It's a natural native to Europe, but has has come over the ocean, shall we say. It's very invasive and very tenacious, so you choose to plant this wisely, but you'll probably notice that it's around and you can find some when you need it. This comfrey here was used by the Greeks and the Romans as medicine and has been used continuously ever since then for medicine. Often it was used internally in the form of a tea to help wounds, to help knit bones back together after fractures and breaks, also coughs and stuff. But these days we only use comfrey externally because of science. And that's kind of a weird story. This herb that was used without really any negative effects being mentioned for thousands of years, some scientists took and they extracted this component called the pyrrolizidine alkaloids, PAs. These pyrrolizidine alkaloids, they took them, extracted them, concentrated them, and started injecting them into rats. And surprise, the rats had a problem with that. The rats actually developed liver cancer. So now anything that has PAs in it is basically off use internally, considered to be a danger. So after thousands of years of use, out the door with this internally, and now we just use it externally because of these PAs. You can get PA-free blends where they've taken the PAs out of the comfrey, and that's another way to use these more safely these days. But just one of those things that was considered safe for forever, and now because we've injected large amounts into rats, somehow it's no longer safe. But we can use this very effectively for external purposes still. Totally legal also. Very, very, very fun. That's my partner just walking behind me. Messed me up. Oh. But these can be used externally for very good uses too. So this is not one we're just totally getting rid of. We're going to use these for things on the outside instead. And what I think about this most for is for wound healing. Yesterday I was in the kitchen and kind of chopped my onion a little too close and cut a little bit off my finger, and I thought, oh, this seems like a time would be great to have some comfrey salve. And I didn't have any comfrey salve, but I did know that this plant was out here back in the back. So here I am now, and I'm going to make a comfrey salve to put on my poor little finger. And that's a great thing to do with it, is if you've got a wound and you want it to heal faster, is to make a comfrey salve. Comfrey salve has a substance called allantoin and another substance called rosmarinic acid, and between those two they really help create great wound healing. The allantoin actually is a cellular proliferative compound. It actually makes your wounds actually keratinize and build up faster than they would, and this can be significant. There's been studies that have shown like 2 to 3 days faster healing using a comfrey salve, even controlled studies on that. Another thing that's great for is bruises and sprains and strains. You can use it as a tea and just apply a tea, like a poultice, or a poultice or tea just right to a bruise or something like that. But you can also make a salve and just rub it right in, and then it's there. And that's what I like to do mostly with this. Let's see, what else? Oh, also studies have shown it's great for the reducing the pain and inflammation and osteoarthritis. That was significant. Also back pain, just back pain in general, they found was improved by applying a preparation of comfrey. So these are things, because that rosmarinic acid is highly anti-inflammatory, and that allantoin just helps heal, helps speed up healing, and is also, very antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. There's other constituents in there, a lot of vitamins and minerals and stuff that help out. Hello, bee. Ah, bumblebees, gotta love them. So this is definitely a plant that you want to add to your toolbox. You do not, when you do wound healing though, if you're using this for a bloody wound, you don't want to do it for a wound that's too deep or infected, potentially infected with any kind of, if it's been too long and it's just infected by bacteria, or if you've got like dirt or other bits of whatever you scraped yourself on, rust in there. You don't want to use this because it will actually heal the surface maybe too fast and then create a pocket in there that could potentially abscess. So you want to use this on wounds that are clean and more superficial wounds. A big scrape would be fine, but not one that's all full of gravel, not one that's deep. For that, you're going to need to wash this out and then maybe use your comfrey salve later in the process. Sprained ankles. This is also a great one that you could use on sprained ankles. Either, like I said, make a tea or just wad a bunch of it into a poultice and put it on your sprained ankle, or just use a nice comfrey salve that you've pre-made to rub on there. Muscle aches, general muscle aches. It reduces pain in surfaces, I guess. Not like an opiate would, but like an anti-inflammatory would, like when you're just having less inflammation, less throbbing, less just really pissed off tissues. You're going to feel less pain. And so that's what we're going to do with this. We are going to, what you want to do is you want to come out here, and you can use the root, but I generally tend to use mostly the leaf. It's just my preference, and it's a lot easier, is just pick some of these big leaves, and you want to make sure there's not anything gross on it, and it's not a moldy leaf or diseased in some other way that you can see. There's not a big egg sac sitting on there, because we're not going to be like boiling this or disinfecting it heavily. So you want to make sure it's a fairly clean leaf. And I've heard some people say that it's best to get the leaves right before they flower, but these things flower so long throughout the season, it seems like maybe a little picky. Maybe in a perfect world you come out here and grab this right before the first flower, but I see no reason not to just wait until they're just big, beautiful leaves and then just take one. You can see over here there's one that is actually a little moldy, and we would not want to use that one. So another thing with making a comfrey salve is it's probably best to do a comfrey salve with dried comfrey. This has a lot of mucilage and moisture in it naturally, fresh, and if you go straight into a salve that way, that's a lot of moisture that it can then spoil. So if you've got the time, you make your comfrey salve by drying the leaves, putting it in your oil, soaking your oil and infusing it for even a couple months, and then straining that out. But I don't have the time. I've got a little owie on my finger and I want this salve soon. And so I'm going to do this time the quick fresh comfrey recipe. And there they go again. Right behind me, I hear two big, loud, sweating, panting dogs distracting me. In any case, back to what I was saying. What I'm going to do is make a fresh comfrey salve with these leaves right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to yesterday. And yesterday I'm going to have picked some of these leaves, and I'm going to have set them aside on a screen to wilt. And then today, right now, when I go back to my kitchen, they're already going to be wilted 24-hour, or I should say 12-hour wilted. You want to wilt them for overnight, basically, or say 12 hours. You want to wilt your comfrey leaves 12 hours, and then you want to go back and make your salve with that, and that's just going to reduce some of the water content from this fresh comfrey, so you can get that into a salve form without so much potential for mold and going bad in general. Oh, a little frog. Everybody's out to distract me today. It's such a beautiful day. We're August. It's very warm already for being fairly early in the morning. And yeah, let's go back into the home and make some of this. Show you what it's all about. Oh, let me show you the plant while we're here. This is comfrey. It's got these very big leaves, and they're a little fuzzy, but it's not like a really pleasant fuzzy. It's kind of prickly, and it can cause contact dermatitis in some people. So while it may be a fuzzy leaf, it's not one you'd want to use for toilet paper. Let's just put it that way. It shoots up branches and flowers, and the branches have these smaller leaves. Basically, they're big spear-shaped leaves. Very lovely, very thick. Now, what's also interesting about comfrey is that they're incredibly invasive. If you plant this, you're just not going to get rid of it, and it's going to keep expanding. You can try to get rid of it. You might try digging it up and chopping all the roots around and throwing all the roots to the wind. But every one of those little pieces of root will grow another comfrey plant, and you will just have made yourself a field of comfrey. So this is something you might want to put in a pot, or just be real mindful of where you decide to plant this. You can see it's got a whole bunch of horsetails all around it right here. And the bumblebees are out just loving it today. And the bees. Oh, another thing about comfrey is that it is an excellent compost amendment. This plant, it grows so quickly that you can cut it down, throw it into your compost, and within probably a couple weeks it'll be halfway as big as it was before. But it also just has such a high amount of vitamins and fiber and just really good quality dense nutrition in it, that when you add that to your compost, it really ups the power of your compost, kind of like a natural fertilizer to add in there. Comfrey is a pretty great plant. Herbalists are still a little confused about why we can't safely use something internally that was safely used forever, but science says it's bad. So, oh my goodness, I have found the mother of all spiders. Can you see that guy over there? Wow. That thing was just sitting right behind my head. Probably waited too much longer, it would have crawled up on there and bitten my eyeball. Oh well. Let's go back to the kitchen. Run away. Okay, let's take a quick moment here to discuss a couple things that are not comfrey. This looks a lot like comfrey, but it is not comfrey. It's got kind of that fuzzy leaf, same spear-like look, but it's completely spotted, and that's not mold, that's lungwort. Not comfrey. Not a bad one to confuse for comfrey, really. It's pretty closely related in the larger realm of things, but don't get confused, because there are some things that would not be good to confuse it with. Let's take a walk around and see a couple other things here that could be confused by a comfrey, by somebody who's just looking for a big spear-like leaf. Here's something out in our little alley here. This is a mullein, and that's definitely not a comfrey. You can see it also has big, fuzzy, spear-like leaves, and when it's young, those will be down on the ground in kind of just a little whirl, and could be definitely confused for comfrey, but not comfrey. Also, not another thing that you don't want to use is toilet paper. These soft leaves are actually little prickly things and will not do your tissues well. So let's go back down here. This is probably the most important thing that you should not confuse for comfrey. This is foxglove. It's late in the season. That would normally have some beautiful either white, yellow, pink, purple kind of bells hanging off it all the way down. But being late in the season, this is another plant that has those kind of fuzzy, leathery feeling. I mean, it's softer, not so much fuzzy, but kind of a leathery feeling at this stage leaf. But that's definitely not comfrey. In fact, that's a really potent cardiac medicine that could be very bad. Whee! Okay, here's some more of the foxtails. At this stage, you could possibly get that confused with comfrey. You definitely would not want to use this internally, as this is a very toxic, low-dose botanical. Like, only in very special occasions would you use even just a few drops of this at a time. It's been used to kill people, frankly. So you don't want to get your comfrey confused with foxgloves, and foxgloves can be at different stages very spear-like and fuzzy and pleasant. You really don't want to get that mixed with mullein, because that is still used internally. But here's a third thing you don't want to use as toilet paper. So when you're out in the woods, don't use those big soft leaves. They may fool you. This one would be much more dangerous than the others if you do get a hold of it wrong. Foxglove, not comfrey. Okay, we're back in my kitchen, and I'm happy to announce that time travel works. I just happened to find this excellent spread of overnight dried comfrey leaves that are a bit crusty. You can see they've been wilted. There's just not as much liquid in there. To compare, here's one of the new leaves that I was just out there flapping around. That's it. Looks much nicer as the other one. But we don't want that nice, healthy look in our leaf. We want our leaf to be a bit wilted now, so that we can have less water content, that's less likely to mold. And this is, like I said, the quick, it's both the quick and easy method, quite frankly. Maybe even the lazy method. The quick, lazy method, let's just put it that way, for getting a comfrey oil, infused oil now that we can use to make a salve with tomorrow. This is the crockpot method, using these wilted comfrey leaves here. What I'm going to want to do is just basically expose surface area, break up in some of those cells so those compounds, those excellent medicinal compounds, can leach into the oil that I'm going to be putting them into. What we really want is a warm oil bath a bit warm to go ahead and get the rest of the moisture out, because there still is some moisture in these stems. It's a lot less moist. These guys, very moist. This, less moist. So, quick and easy method. Wilt them overnight. Throw them in a crock pot. And cover them with oil. You can use an extra virgin olive oil. I'm using an avocado oil. I just think avocado oil works better for my skin. But you could also use a grapeseed oil. You could probably use a coconut oil in here, definitely. It would start out hard, and in the crock pot, that's fine. But basically, you just want to cover your herb up with your oil, skin-friendly oil. It could be an almond oil. There's a variety of oils. Sesame oil is another great skin oil. I've started this on low, but now that I have the herbs in there, I want to yank that down to warm. So I don't really want these to boil. I just want them to kind of rumble in a hot bath without really boiling the compounds out too much. It will lose a bit of its goodness just being in the higher temperature, but we're not going to leave it in a very high temperature, and we're not going to leave it in too extremely long. Usually overnight I find you get a really nice comfrey oil out of that, and you can actually leave the lid off for a couple hours. Usually I do that later. I'll leave it on for a while, really get it warmed up in there, get it kind of cooking, and then I'll take the lid off, and that'll let some more of that humidity come off of the plant material. And then since we are using a fairly fresh comfrey in this one, I'll probably add some vitamin E oil at the end. I don't do that while it's cooking, but I'll add that at the end. Maybe half, maybe a quarter of that, probably a quarter of that. That's not a lot of oil in there. And there it is, just a fairly small mini crock pot on warm with chopped up comfrey leaves that have been left overnight by my time-traveling doppelganger. Very convenient. We'll be back. These are the fresh ones. Those need to wilt. Maybe we'll add those in. Maybe we'll do something else with this. That would make a great thing to use for a compress as a tea or a poultice. Okay, so basically we've got our infused oil overnight, some beeswax pellets, some vitamin E oil. I'm going to squish that down, measure out how much beeswax pellets we need according to this recipe, which is 1 ounce beeswax pellets per cup of infused oil. We're going to add some vitamin E or possibly some essential oils to prevent the spoilage or to give it a nice smell. And we're going to put that back in the crock pot on low. So the first thing we're going to do is turn the crock to low. It's been at warm overnight. Now we're going to low just to get those beeswax pellets melted up better. Yep. Okay, here we're back with the crock pot. It has been on low, and all the beeswax pellets have melted, and so we're just going to now put that into the jar and let that cool, and that's our salve. Look at that. Nice. Evidently this is my day of putting oily stuff everywhere on the counter. It's fun to use a random size assortment of jars from your 1,000-jar collection. You can see it's going to be a pretty good salve. It's already salving up on the side there. The bottom of this looks a little bit crusty. I'll probably take that through a strainer one more time, but these guys are good to go. Just want to clean off the rim with a paper towel, get the lids on there, let these dry. We'll come back and look at them. Maybe this is the end. Aha. Woo. It's pretty hot. Like the crock pot method, because it's just really lazy. Just kind of put it in there, let the oil soak overnight, pop it up to low, melt that beeswax, and now you have got several jars of perfectly good stuff. For all your cuts and sprains and aches and pains. Got lots of little jars of comfrey oil now. Yay! Success. And here they are. Lots of little jars of comfrey oil now. We filled them up, wiped them down, put the lids on them. It's a really good way to use up all those little jam jars that you've been hoarding for years. That is comfrey oil mixed with beeswax. Oh, you can add a little bit of vitamin E oil in there too. Or essential oils. You can see where I've sploshed a little bit on the counter that this is going to be a really great salve consistency. But if you want to test that without just pouring it on the counter, you can get a little spoon and just pull a little teaspoon out and wait for a minute and just kind of poke it with your fingers, play with it, and see if it's the consistency you like. Some people use a lot more beeswax, even twice as much beeswax as I do. I find this consistency is really great for my area. It's not a horribly hot area, so that makes sense. Pacific Northwest, comfrey, salve, right there. So now that I've shown you how to make some wonderful medicine, I want to remind you that it's very important to go see a doctor or a naturopath or at least an herbalist before starting any herbals for your conditions. For one thing, you may not really understand what your diagnosis is. You may think it's just a little bit of this and that can be treated with some plants, when it's really something serious and you're missing it, and it could be fatal. Also, there are interactions between herbs and drugs, and there's also contraindications between some of the problems you may be having and the herbs you may think you need. So don't start taking anything willy-nilly unless you're sure what's going on. And to be sure, come see a naturopath like me. I'm in Portland, Oregon. I do house calls in the greater Portland area, and I also have an office in Milwaukee.